Hello and welcome to the Un-American Football Show's weekly prediction episode. I'm Alan, that's Nate, that's Ross, and we're going to be guiding you through the final week of the regular season, week 18, looking back at our picks and making some calls for when football really matters, playoff football. Before we go into that, Nate, Ross, how you guys doing?
No.
Well, I've already moved on to baseball season, so that tells you everything you need to know about how our weekends went, I think, by both our reactions.
Nate's concentrating on fantasy basketball, I think, which is actually a concern to me because he's doing too well.
5
Both
wins,
better
right?
sports.
I'm on the fantasy basketball end. I'm mirroring what I did last year in my push for the championship. I started out 3-2, and then went on like a 12-game unbeaten run, and I'm currently five unbeaten, having started 0-5. I'm now 6-6. So
That's actually how you want it to go in fantasy. I've realised, like in our
yeah,
Dynasty League, I'd lost 5 of the first 7 or something, and then I didn't lose again all the way through into the end. So
yeah,
you don't want to burn too bright too soon. Anyway,
yeah,
let's
and
look.
I was the same. I was the opposite in Dynasty. Started out like 4-0, 5-0, went nowhere.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens. You need to play the long game. Anyway, let's talk about week 18 and our picks. So it all started on Saturday night. So I'm not sure how I feel about Saturdays, but it started at Mile High with the Chiefs taking on the Broncos. We went for some handicaps and some under-overs on this one. Under-over was 43.5. The handicap was 10.5. Well, Broncos plus 10.5. Nate, you're the only person that went Broncos 10.5. You got the point there. And then you and I both went for the over, which it hit. So you got 2 points, Nate. I got 1 point. Ross, slow start to the week for you on Saturday.
Again,
Yeah, I wasn't in the zone for my Saturday picks as usual. But I know the Broncos just were a lot better on offense than I ever expected them to be with Drew Lock under center. So
how
that's not
about
really
St.
something.
Patrick?
Yeah, it's not really something anybody can predict with Drew Lock playing well.
It's a surprise to us all. Let's not dwell on the game too long. Let's talk about, this was a good game. The Cowboys 51 against
Jesus
the Eagles
Christ.
26 at Lincoln Financial Field, Sunday 1:15 a.m.
Oh, I'm making that into a clip.
Please do. We all went for the Cowboys. Ross, you expected a close game. It was not. Nate and I both expected at least a 40 burger and a high margin of 3-score game, which it was. The game, to be honest, Ross, could have been a lot closer if the Eagles hadn't decided to rest all their starters. So you didn't know that at the time. I guess it sort of swings and roundabouts this time of year and with COVID and what have you. So unfortunately for you.
They weren't going to gain anything by winning that game.
No. Well, they could have been 6th or 7th, I think, from memory, but not a lot. No, I think they're massive underdogs going into the playoffs. The Cowboys had much more to gain from playing.
Yeah, it's kind of irrelevant who the Eagles face at this stage, isn't it?
Yeah, although I sort of fancy the chance against the Buccaneers. But anyway, more on that later. Let's move to Sunday, regular sort of timing of games, 6 p.m. We had the Steelers at Ravens. Nate and I, we both went for the Ravens. Ross, you went for the Steelers. And not only did you go for the Steelers, you went for 16-13, which was on the nose. He's done it.
I'm in the correct score gang.
You are, nice here. Yeah. Well,
it's quite nice in the club. It's like
it feels good.
It's like a VIP section in the club. There's bottles, there's champagne.
Oh, fuck off!
Nice. We get let in through the leather rope from the security guard. The big burly guy, and Nate turns up, and the security guard says, "No entrance."
It's an unfortunate truth. I
can kick you out.
There's still football to be played. This game was horrible. Went to overtime, which was sort of how it ended up being 16-13, settled on a field goal. Because these teams can't score for toffee, really.
if the Ravens had won this game, the Colts would have been in the playoffs.
Yeah. So
even
double
after
nightmare.
sucking hard.
Yeah, double nightmare, unfortunately for you.
It's probably a good thing that we didn't make the playoffs, actually, because hopefully it means Wentz is going to go.
I'm not sure he will, but I guess time will tell on that one. Moving on, Sunday 9:25, we had this was a massive game for playoff implications. In fact, the next two were Saints at Falcons. We went for some handicaps and under-overs on this one. It was Falcons plus 4.5 and under-over of 40.5. From memory, I think this one hit the over by half-time, or very close to it. We didn't all go for the over. Ross, you didn't fancy the over. You went for the under, which was incorrect. Ross and I both went for Saints minus 4.5, which was correct. And Nate, you went for Falcons plus 4.5. I mean, these two teams are very hard to predict, so it's not necessarily surprising that we all got at least a point. Myself, the only person that escaped with 2.
The Falcons almost actually snatched another 6 points at the end. They scored a late touchdown and then had an onside kick recovery that could have led them. I think they had like 20 seconds on the clock. And 50 to go, so it's not a surprise that they didn't make it. I was sat there after just hoping that Cordell Patterson popped up and had a crazy run, but he's been slowing down towards the tail end of the season, so it's unsurprising that he didn't.
To be fair, it's actually I would say it's actually quite surprising that we won by 10 and the overhit, because Trevor Siemian was playing for about at least 2.5 quarters of this game, because Taysom Hill got injured fairly early on. So
you didn't really score many points with Simeon in there, did you? It was mostly already done by that point.
It was a good.
I think
it was a good 20 points scored. I think we were on 10 or so, and then
really?
Simeon came in.
Really? I thought he came in later than that.
No, he came in the second quarter sometime. I think it was the score might have been 7-6. So we got a lot of the points under Trevor Siemian, which again very surprising.
I mean, we all fancied the Saints to win this one. It was just the margin that was of interest. The game that was really interesting was also same time Sunday 9:25. 49ers at Rams. 49ers winning this one 27-24. You know, the Rams have blown hot and cold all through the season, and they continue to do so. We all fancied the Rams, so there's not too much points knocking about on this one.
Ross was remarkably close to another perfect score.
Yes, the wrong team, but
the wrong team.
The field goal went the wrong way or whatever.
Yeah. Can you imagine if he took 2 on the last regular season show? Horrible.
from zero to hero of week 18. I mean, this was an interesting game. Like, I think Deebo Samuel threw their first touchdown as well. That guy can literally do everything. He can do no wrong. But the Rams, they're just not going into the playoffs in good form, whereas the 49ers, you've got to say they are. So it'd be interesting to see how they perform in the playoffs. I actually probably...
One and done.
For which one?
Both.
Oh, well, we'll talk about more of that in a second. No matter how good that game was, the Rams 49ers, which at one point was 17-0 to the Rams with about 30 seconds to go before halftime. Game of the week must have been Chargers at Raiders. 32-35 in favour of the Raiders. We didn't fancy the Raiders at all, any of us. Ross, you actually got the closest because you expected it to be a close game, a 3-point game, which it was. So again, you were pretty close. You went 31-34. It was actually 32-35, but the wrong way round again. You could have had 3 if you just changed your mind almost on the winners. Great game, crazy throughout. The Raiders looked like they'd thrown it away, but somehow their kicker, Carlson, is it William Carlson? He is super clutch, that guy.
William. This guy is Daniel Carlson.
Daniel Carlson, right, yeah. I knew it was some sort of like really boring name.
He's not going to be Willie. Daniel Willie Carlson.
Well, that's Willie Carson, not Carlson, isn't it?
Carlson. Yeah, I suppose. I like
But yeah,
it,
great game. Didn't necessarily expect the Raiders to win, but fair play to them. Let's move on then to Fantasy Player of the Week. We all scored well. All scored over 20 points. Cooper Kupp scored something like 21. Justin Herbert scored 28 point something.
No, Cooper Kupp got 26.6.
Oh, did he?
Justin Herbert got 28.42.
Yeah.
And Austin Eckler got 28.9. So
Thank you for confirming.
4.48 the margin between Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler.
Yeah. And that's a lot. I actually won my final fantasy playoff game in one league this week. Over 2 weeks, I won by 0.22 across 2 weeks. So that was actually closer, which is insane. So yeah, I pick up the point there. But all very good predictions from the three of us there. So I think we can at least all have a pat on the back. That means it was a super close week. Ross and Nate, you both scored 8 respectively, and I caught Ross up in the sort of the slowest possible fashion by scoring a 9. That makes it 107, 121, 125, the splits between us at the end of the regular season.
So Ross, you're the regular season champion.
First ever.
Yeah, feels good. The inaugural Tough Show regular season champion.
Yeah.
Title to be.
But it doesn't end there.
Feels
It
good.
doesn't end there.
No, it doesn't end there.
No, it's a super wildcard weekend now, apparently. I think it's just wildcard weekend, really. I suppose you can put super in front of anything and try and make it sound more exciting than it actually is. But super wildcard weekend, which we're going to try and mix it up a little bit on the predictions. So we're all going to do under-overs, all going to do handicaps, and we're all going to do a fantasy player of the game as well, with a build-up of points if you get all of them. So let's talk about Saturday, 9:30. In the AFC, we've got the just in the playoffs Las Vegas Raiders travelling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. The handicap line is Raiders plus 6.5, and the under-over is quite a healthy-looking 48.5. Just having a quick rundown, we all fancy the Bengals minus 6.5. I'm the only person that's gone under rather. Nate, Ross, you've both gone over. Nate, why don't you tell us why you've gone over in this one?
The Bengals score a lot of points and allow a lot of points, and the Raiders have been scoring for fun the last few weeks.
Fair enough. I just think personally, I think it's going to be a playoff game. Anything can happen. I think the Bengals are going to try and keep the ball as much as they can. I mean, I'm not wildly impressed by the Raiders' offense. Yeah, they scored a lot of points against the Chargers, but I'm not wildly impressed by their defense. So I guess I just think.
But the Bengals' defense sucks as well.
I think they're okay.
What was this? How many points did the Browns put up on them this week?
Well, they weren't playing a lot of starters, so I would take that with a bit.
All right. How many points did the Browns put up on them last time? 42?
I mean, everyone has off days, don't they?
The Bengals allow a lot of points.
Yeah, the Bengals are right in the middle of the pack of points per game in the league this year. I think
it's
16 to 18. So it's very possible the Raiders, in the run of form they're in, gained all that confidence against the Chargers to go and score a lot of points. These guys did meet in week 11, I think. The Bengals ran out 32-13 winners. I do think the Raiders' offense has improved a lot since then, which is why I see the overhitting. But I think the Bengals are just on that next level now with their offense, where they can outgun any opponent on any given day, and that's why I've taken the Bengals.
Fair enough. Time will tell. And for our fantasy player of the week, so actually none of us have gone for a repeat on this one. Nate, you fancy Jamar Chase. I've gone for T. Higgins. Ross, you've gone for Joe Mixon. I don't necessarily think we need to analyse that one too much. I think we all fancy the Bengals offense do the job, get the win here, and it could come through any three of those guys. To be perfectly honest, I don't think any of us would be particularly shocked, unless it was Joe Mixon. Then Nate would be. Saturday night, Sunday morning for us. We've got for the third time this season the hat trick. We've got the New England Patriots up against the Buffalo Bills. Oh, great. I've been dying to watch this game since about 3 weeks ago. The handicap line is Patriots plus 4.5. The under over is 44.5. Just looking at what we all fancy. Nate and I, we both fancy the Bills minus 4.5. Ross, you've gone for the Pats plus 4.5. We all fancy the over. Nate, you've gone for Josh Allen as your fancy player of the week. I've gone for Devin Singletary, who's been resurgent over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And Ross, you've gone for Stephon Diggs. So again, across the board, which is quite nice. Let's go to you first, Ross, just because you've chosen the Pats plus 4.5. Why do you fancy the Pats?
I just fancy the Pats to keep the game close. I think it could be a Bills 1, 2, 3 point win. If this was a straight match winner, I would choose the Bills. But in this line, I do fancy the Pats to keep it close. I think they've got a solid enough defense. They've seen Josh Allen twice now, so and that rushing attack twice now. I think they should be able to build up some sort of a game plan to keep him quiet enough. But I don't know. It's the Bills and the Pats. They still have decent enough offenses where you're going to score points. They did combine for 54 points in the last meeting, so it's going to be a close game in my book. But I fancy Diggs to be the difference maker. Don't forget, it was against the Pats in the last game in Foxborough where he was heard audibly abusing a New England Patriots fan after a touchdown. Particularly passionate that day. I think he's going to double down with an even more impressive performance, which is why I've gone for him.
And he's gonna abuse that Pats fan again, hopefully.
Yes, he can.
I think for me, the last couple of times that these two teams have faced, the Bills haven't really had a run game going. And I think that's been a difference maker for them over the last 4 or 5 weeks. That's sort of why I've sort of doubled down on Singletary as my fancy player of the week and the Bills getting the win. Personally, I think they've now got something else in their arsenal that they're actually doing effectively, which they hadn't done the rest of the season. Anything to add on that, Nate, or do you want to talk about the next game?
Josh Allen turned style on Boxing Day. Had a very good game. On the flip side, Mac Jones didn't have a great day. I just think the game's going to go the same way.
Yeah, cool. So let's talk about Sunday, 6 p.m. Over in the NFC, we've got the Eagles travelling to Raymond James, Tampa Bay, take on the Buccaneers, my favourite stadium in the world with the pirate ship. The handicap line is Eagles plus 8.5, under over of 49.5, which is the highest so far that we've gone through. Looking at the scores, you guys have both taken the Bucks minus 8.5. I've taken the Eagles plus 8.5. We've all taken the under. Ross, you like Gronk. I like Hurts. Nate, you like Evans. Mike Evans. I was thinking, Evans? Good Evans. I suppose I better start then. Why on earth do I fancy the Eagles? The Buccaneers have been struggling in recent weeks. Their wide receiving corps depleted. Mike Evans has had injuries, should be fine. Antonio Brown's gone AWOL / injured, / cut. There's people that no one's ever heard of getting 7 or 8 catches a game for the Buccaneers. The Eagles' defense, I think, has been fairly all right most of the season. They play a lot of cover 2, so a lot of the action's happening in front of them. And Mike Evans isn't really a guy to sort of go over the top, I don't think, anymore. Although an outstanding receiver. And I just don't think they've got anyone really on that offense. Brashad Perryman is probably the only guy that's close to sort of being the over-the-top guy. And I'm not too worried about him. So I just fancy the Eagles to keep it relatively close, well-rested after an absolute battering last week at home. And they get a lot of guys probably back from the COVID list. So that's why I sort of fancy the Eagles. Nate, tell me why I'm wrong.
The Eagles should count themselves a little bit lucky that they've made the playoffs. And I think the inverse is true of the Bucks. The Bucks are a better team. The Eagles can't. I don't think the Eagles defend very well.
Ross, where are they in the league?
Eagles are bottom half of the league. They're one spot below the Bengals in points per game allowed.
So around mid-table still.
Mike Evans over the last 6 weeks, he's missed one game. He scored 2.4 against the Saints, but he's got over 16.7 against Atlanta, Buffalo, the Jets, and Carolina. So good and bad teams in that stretch. He styled on the Giants and Washington and the Saints in their first game, and Chicago and Miami and the Rams and the Falcons again. They have a great day against Dallas. Solid, but not great. He wasn't targeted a lot.
He was being shadowed by Trayvon Diggs, despite what everyone says. But anyway,
the only games that he really seemed to struggle in were against Philly, ironically, the Colts,
it's a great case,
and the Saints. So I would assume that
can't play against Marshall Lattimore to save his life.
He's going to go again, and he'll have another great day. 26.9 points this week, and I'd imagine a similar kind of score up above, certainly up in double digits, in the higher teens, maybe.
Yeah, I imagine he might be covered and shadowed by Darius Slay a lot in this one. That would be wise on the Eagles' part. Ross, just quickly, we've all taken the under. Why have you taken the under? Is it just because you don't think the Eagles are going to score much, or you just think it's just not going to be a very high-scoring game?
I don't have the stats in front of me, but I just have a feeling, a gut instinct, that these teams are both pretty good red zone defenses. Really good defensive lines, pretty good rushing defenses. Both have at least a couple of good defensive backs. The Eagles have Slay. The Bucks have Van Winfield. Devin White can cover almost like a cornerback sometimes, that linebacker position. So I just think there's going to, even if they both move the ball well, the Eagles with the rushing attack and the Bucks with Brady through the air, it might be held to field goals quite a lot, which is why I have the under here.
The score in the other game was 28 points to 22 in favour of the Bucks. So they scored 50 last time out. I did literally, as you were saying, we've all taken the under. I just changed to the under. I'm gonna leave it, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a similar scoreline.
I just think there's a different Buccaneers team. It feels like a different Buccaneers team to me. They've lost wide receivers. Leonard Fournette's been on IR. Could be back. Might not be back. Lost Rojo. He's injured.
Yeah.
So they're using Keyshawn Vaughn, who sort of like had about 7 carries probably all season. He's had more than that, but it's low. Let's move on. That's enough talking about the Eagles. Fuck the Eagles. Let's move on to Sunday 9:30. It's a game that gives me the willies. San Francisco 49ers coming into Jerry World against the Cowboys. Handicap represents how much of a tight game this is. It's 49ers plus 2.5. Usually 3 is the sort of standard for an even game. Given home advantage would be 3 points normally. The under over a massive 51.5 points. I'm going to be honest. I want to take the San Francisco 49ers, but there's no way I can take a San Francisco 49ers wearing a Dak Prescott jersey. So we've all got the Cowboys minus 2.5. I've taken the under. I think it might be a little bit more cagey than that. I think some of the defenses show up. You guys have taken the over. Again, we've split the fantasy players, which is nice. Nate, you've taken CeeDee Lamb. You think he's going to get back on track this week. I've taken Deebo Samuel, despite taking the Cowboys to win. I just think the offense runs a lot through them. And then Ross, you fancy Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper recently said that he's not getting enough targets. Is that why you've decided to go for him, Ross? Quite often that does make a change.
I think he's one of their main touchdown threats. I don't really rate the 49ers cornerbacks on the outside that much. So I think Cooper could dust them, to be honest. One of my favourite players in the league as well. So I thought this was an opportunity to root for him in a game that I don't really care that much about. So.
And Nate, you obviously fancy the Cowboys. Do you fancy them to win it, or do you think them just to... Well, you must fancy them to win it, so it's minus 2.5. Do you expect them to win it by a lot, or do you expect it to be pretty close?
7-8 points, I think. I don't really fancy... I don't know if I do fancy Lamb to be the fantasy scorer, but I didn't want to take Deebo as well, so there we are. No, I could have. I don't want to double up on this one.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, it's quite nice we all split it, and quite often it's not always the obvious guy that is the fantasy scorer of the week.
I nearly took Brandon Ayuk
Had a good game last week.
just for shits and giggles.
George Kittle also has been quiet the last few weeks, but is much better with Jimmy G under centre than Trey Lance. So yeah, anything could happen. Cedric Wilson, massive game incoming, hopefully.
Trevor Diggs is going to allow CeeDee Lamb a ton of yards. There we go.
CeeDee Lamb.
Oh yeah, no, same team, isn't
Yeah.
he? Deebo Samuel, yeah, it's going to be Deebo Samuel. He's going to get loads of yards against Trevor Diggs.
He could do. It could even be a bit of an Elijah Mitchell game, to be honest. A hard one to call, really. Exciting game for a neutral, I think, probably, but not so much for me.
I almost went Zeke as well, because obviously there's only one real running threat at the moment in Dallas. But I think the Niners will probably shut that down.
Hopefully. Leave more for the outside. Anyway, let's talk about Sunday night. This is another game that probably shouldn't really exist. Does not get me too excited for staying up for a Sunday night. The particularly ropey Pittsburgh Steelers travelling to Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Handicap line, a insulting plus 12.5 for the Steelers, under over of 47.5. I mean, that is a massive line. We've all gone the Chiefs minus 12.5, which is bold in itself. Nate, you fancy the over. Ross and I have both gone for the under. You guys both fancy Tyreek Hill. He's had quite a few weeks to get back on track. I've gone for a bit more of a safety blanket in Travis Kelce. Ross, tell us about why you think the Chiefs are going to be able to beat this 12.5 spread.
Just a better team, aren't they? I don't really know what else to say about it. The Chiefs' offense has maybe not been quite up to their 2019, 2020, 2018 standard, and it hasn't been as consistent this year. But I just think they will cause the Steelers matchup problems all over the field. Everyone, I think, is pretty healthy on the Chiefs side of the ball. They rested Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the final week of the season. I think he's going to be back from what I've read. The rest of the running backs, pretty good stable there. Darrell Williams, he's fine. Travis Kelce is obviously a matchup nightmare for anyone. Tyreek Hill, me and Nate have both picked. Probably the one fantasy pick that we've shared, I think, across all the fantasy players' predictions here. I think the fact that we all go on Hill and Kelce, Hill or Kelce, just shows they have the better players, the elite players. The Steelers have kind of fallen backwards through their own arses into the playoffs somehow. I don't know. I just think it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath. But if there's one way the Steelers keep this close, it's through that defense just managing to get to Patrick Mahomes. We've seen how he is when he's under pressure. He makes mistakes. He throws the ball away. He throws interceptions more than ever before. So that is how they keep it close, is TJ Watt getting after him and Patrick Mahomes getting the willies in the pocket.
Yeah. And Nate, you're the only person to take the over.
Yeah.
Is that because you think it's going to be powered by the Chiefs mainly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ross's analysis of how the Steelers keep this game close is exactly bang on. Get to Mahomes. I just don't trust the Steelers to do that constantly. Sure, 2 or 3 sacks, but it's not going to be enough to derail the old Chiefs Express from steamrolling the Steelers. I'm just looking at the previous game, Boxing Day. Chiefs won 36 points to 10, which is obviously 1.5 beneath our under-over. But they very much took their foot off the gas late on. The damage was done pretty early. The fourth, they took two field goals in the fourth quarter and allowed a touchdown in the fourth quarter. I don't see that happening in the playoffs, whether they're well ahead or not. I feel like in the playoffs, you want statement victories all the way through. And that's what I expect. And, a similar scoreline, maybe Steelers getting a few more points, maybe as high as 16. But I'd be surprised. I would almost be surprised if the Chiefs don't drop a 40 burger here.
Ooh. Well, next we've got another game that we've already seen a couple of times this season. I'm just having a quick look and see who rolled out winners last time. Oh, it's one apiece. This is interesting. We got a tiebreaker on Monday night. It's the first time there's ever been a Monday night wildcard game.
Yeah.
Unnecessary, but I'm down for it. Spread it out a little bit. Football's coming scarce. We got the Los Angeles Rams playing at SoFi against the visiting Arizona Cardinals. These two teams are sort of flip-flopped between playing well and poorly pretty much all season. It's as hard as ever to try and call this one. It's Cardinals plus 3.5. So again, bookies are seeing it pretty level, just giving just over home advantage to the Rams, under/over of 50.5. Second highest of the week? Yes. I'm really undecided on this one. So the Rams have won once, the Cardinals have won once. I need to make a call on what I want. I'm going to go for the Rams with Nate on Rams plus... No, it can't be Rams plus 3.5. It's Rams minus 3.5. Yeah, I'll take the Rams minus 3.5. Whereas Ross, you're going to take the Cardinals plus 3.5. Nate and I also fancy the over. Ross, you fancy the under. Prepare for me to come to you in a second on both of those. Nate, you fancy Cam Akers to stamp his mark on his second return to the team. I'm going to go for the ever reliable Cooper Kupp. And Ross, you've definitely doubled down on the Cardinals and gone Kyler Murray. Talk us through your trio. Is this going to win you the week?
Hope so. Cardinals, as you said, they've actually lost 4 of their last 5. So they're kind of falling backwards over themselves into the playoffs. But within that was a tight 25-22 victory over the Dallas Cowboys. I think they probably let up a little bit against the Seahawks, despite the fact they were still playing for the division, with an eye towards the playoffs still. Cardinals beat the Rams in their own building early on in the season, which is another reason I've gone for them. And that's when the Rams were also similarly at the height of their powers. I think both teams were just about undefeated coming into that game in LA, so that's probably the better indicator. Matty Stafford's been struggling on offense for the last month or so. He's another big reason. Both in terms of taking the under, I see it as being a bit of a slugfest, to be honest. I think both offenses have been kind of struggling a little bit. And I think that line is actually really high. What is it, 50.5 points? I think that's a really high line for how much these offenses have been struggling. And the defenses are top half of the league in points per game. So I think that's a pretty high line, which is why I'm going for the under. If the Cardinals are going to win, Kyler Murray is going to be the reason. So you've got to take him. He's probably going to pick up 50, 60 yards rushing as well. So you've got to get those bonus points.
Probably relatively fair assessments, but I think that first game was so long ago that it's kind of irrelevant now. Both teams have had vastly fluctuating form since then. If I look back to the previous game, Rams won that 30 points to 23 after turning on the style in the second and third quarters. Stafford had a great day. Kyler Murray had a dreadful day with 2 interceptions. I mean, still 383 yards, but 2 interceptions, so it wasn't a dreadful day. Whereas, he had 100 yards more than Stafford, but 3 touchdowns fewer. I've also got to think about the recent games that the Cardinals have had. They're just bad at the moment. Quite frankly, they've been dreadful the last few weeks. Especially, they handed the Lions 30 points to 12. Lost just after they'd lost to the Rams. Then the Colts came to town. They lost to the Colts as well. Obviously, they beat Cowboys on Christmas Day, but then they lost to the Seahawks as well. So it's just
lost to a lot of teams that didn't make the playoffs.
Lost to a lot of teams that didn't make the playoffs. And in those games, almost everybody was running on them all day long. The Lions had a lad called Craig Reynolds go for 112 yards, which exactly. So I think there's a way to beat this Cardinals team. Keep it on the ground. they can't stop you. The Rams, some pretty good running backs. Hopefully, Cam Akers comes back and makes a statement. But either way, I think we see a similar kind of game where the Rams play the game in the middle and play the game on the ground. Because obviously, once you get the ground game work going as well, it starts to open up. The wide spaces as well. So they could really burn the Cardinals if they can get that ground game going.
Yeah, I think the line of scrimmage is massive in this one, and that when you mentioned about the Cardinals beating the Cowboys, they clearly won the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And Chandler Jones just absolutely destroyed everyone coming anywhere near him for the Cowboys. So, yeah, I answered the Rams to get back on track. Matt Stafford's been ropey as hell the last few weeks. Hopefully, playoff game, big game for him. Can't have made the playoff many times in Detroit. But we all trust the quality of Matt Stafford, and he's got weapons around him. So I think they're at least going to put up points, and I think I think that the Cardinals may struggle a little bit.
You guys see it as more than a field goal win for the Rams, though, because more than a field goal win seems like you guys think it's
not a lot more.
Yeah, okay.
So I 7 to 10 points.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't be that bold. If the line was 5.5, I'd probably be taking the Cardinals.
Yeah,
I think it's this line's very close in my opinion.
I think the Cardinals missing Nuke is the biggest factor on why they offensively are pretty one-dimensional at the moment, and it doesn't really bode well for them. Yeah, I think Donald's going to have a typically dominant day.
Well, we don't have to wait long, thankfully. So that's the whole slate of the games. I think there's some real interesting games in there. That Rams Cardinals one, it's so hard to call. I think it is going to be a really exciting one. There's definitely some exciting games in there. I do think there's some potential for some upsets as well. So, guys, thanks for joining us. Everyone that's joined us, watching us on YouTube, thank you for coming. If you liked the video, give us a like, give us a comment, hit subscribe. And if you want to track us a little bit more, so what else we're up to, follow us over on Twitter at Tough Show Official. If you want to join our Discord community, it's free. Just come talk football with other people. Get into arguments about whether you think Carson Wentz is any good or not. There's more information about that below.
There's no argument there. No one says yes.
Some people will. It wasn't that long ago when people thought he was great. There's people even think that Jalen Hurts is great. So there's definitely people that think that Carson Wentz is great. But yeah, find out more about that below, as well as on our Twitter page as well, and check out our podcast available wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, so on and so forth. Thanks everyone again, and see you after Wildcard weekend.